If you're over 60 and you've been relying on walking as your main form of exercise, what I'm about to share may completely change how you think about staying strong, independent, and healthy as you age. For years, walking has been promoted as the safest and most effective way to stay active in later life, and in many ways that is true. But what most people are never told is that walking alone has a serious limitation, and there is one simple, low impact movement that can actually deliver more benefits to your strength, balance, and long term independence than walking ever could. And here's the part that matters most. This isn't about extreme workouts, expensive equipment, or gym memberships. It's about a natural, practical movement that your body already knows how to do, but most people stop training as they get older. Even more surprising, this one exercise can help rebuild muscle, protect your joints, improve balance, support heart health, sharpen mental focus, and significantly reduce the risk of falls and loss of independence. And it can all be done in just a few minutes a day, right at home. Before we go deeper, let me ask you something honestly. Have you ever noticed that even though you walk regularly, your legs still feel weaker than they used to? Or maybe your balance doesn't feel as steady as before, and simple things like standing up from a chair or climbing stairs feel more difficult than they should. If that sounds familiar, you're definitely not alone. Millions of older adults walk every day, yet still experience muscle loss, stiffness, fatigue, and reduced stability. The reason is actually very simple, and it has nothing to do with laziness or lack of effort. Walking is a repetitive forward motion activity that mostly uses a limited set of muscles in a very consistent pattern. It keeps you moving, yes, but it doesn't strongly challenge your muscles. And without that challenge, the body slowly begins to lose muscle mass over time, a process known as sarcopenia. After the age of 60, this muscle loss can happen faster than most people realize if it isn't actively resisted. And this is where things become very important to understand. Muscle is not just about strength or appearance. Muscle is what keeps you independent. It supports your joints, stabilizes your balance, helps control blood sugar, protects your bones, and allows you to perform all the basic movements of daily life. In simple terms, muscle is what allows you to live life on your own terms without constantly depending on others. Here's something most people never hear clearly enough. One of the strongest predictors of long term independence in older age is not body weight, not cholesterol levels, and not even daily step count. It is lower body strength, balance control, and the ability to stand up from a seated position smoothly and repeatedly. That single ability tells you far more about your functional health than most medical numbers ever could. And this brings us directly to the exercise that changes everything. It's called the chair squat. Now, don't let the simplicity of the name fool you. A chair squat is exactly what it sounds like, standing up from a chair and sitting back down in a controlled, intentional way. But when done correctly, this basic movement becomes one of the most powerful full body strength builders for people over 60. It may look easy, but it activates some of the most important muscle groups in your entire body. Your thighs, hips, glutes, lower back, and core all work together every time you rise from a chair. These are the exact muscles responsible for walking, climbing stairs, getting out of bed, carrying groceries, and preventing falls. In other words, this single movement trains the foundation of your independence. Unlike walking, which becomes easier the more you do it, chair squats continuously challenge your body in a safe and controlled way. Each repetition is a form of resistance against gravity. Every time you stand up, you are lifting your own body weight, which is one of the most natural forms of strength training available. To really understand this, think about it like this. When you walk, one foot is always on the ground, which reduces the load on your muscles. But when you stand up from a chair, your entire body has to push upward against gravity all at once. That means your muscles are doing significantly more work in a very short, controlled movement. This is exactly why someone can walk every day and still struggle to stand up from a low chair without support. Now, you might be thinking that this sounds too simple to make a real difference, or maybe even a little risky if your knees or back are sensitive. But the truth is quite the opposite. When performed correctly, the chair squat is one of the safest strength building exercises available for older adults. In fact, it is widely used by physical therapists around the world as a foundational movement for rehabilitation, mobility training, and fall prevention. The key is control and support. You are never forced beyond your comfort level. You always have a chair behind you. You control how low you go, how fast you move, and how many repetitions you perform. This makes it adaptable for nearly every fitness level, including those who haven't exercised in years. Here is how it is done safely. You begin by sitting near the edge of a sturdy chair with your feet placed flat on the floor, roughly shoulder width apart. Your posture stays tall, your chest remains open, and your gaze is directed forward. From this position, you gently lean slightly forward from your hips, not your back. Then you press through your heels and slowly begin to stand up in a smooth motion. At the top, you stand tall without locking your knees. Then, with full control, you slowly bend your hips and knees and lower yourself back down until you gently touch the chair again. That complete motion counts as one repetition. If needed, you can lightly use the armrests for support at the beginning and gradually reduce that support as your strength improves over time. What makes this movement so powerful is not speed or intensity, but control. Slow, steady movement builds both strength and stability at the same time, which is exactly what the aging body needs most. And here is something truly important to understand. Research has shown that the ability to perform repeated sit to stand movements within a short time frame is strongly linked to longevity, mobility, and independence in older adults. In other words, this simple action is more than just exercise. It is a direct reflection of how well your body is functioning as a whole. But the benefits don't stop at muscle strength. When you perform chair squats regularly, your heart rate naturally increases, circulation improves, oxygen delivery becomes more efficient, and your overall energy levels begin to rise. It is not just a leg exercise, it supports your entire cardiovascular system in a gentle but effective way. And perhaps most importantly, this movement helps you reconnect with your body in a very practical sense. It reminds your muscles and nervous system how to work together efficiently, which becomes increasingly important as we age. Now that you understand why this movement is so powerful and how it works, the next step is learning how to integrate it safely into your daily routine and how even a small number of repetitions can start producing real changes in strength, balance, and confidence over time. Now that you understand the basic power behind the chair squat, the next question becomes even more important. How do you actually turn this simple movement into a real daily habit that transforms your strength, balance, and energy without overwhelming your body or making you feel sore or discouraged? Because here's the truth most people miss. The effectiveness of this exercise is not based on intensity, it is based on consistency. Your body after 60 does not respond best to extreme effort done occasionally. It responds best to small, repeated signals that tell it, day after day, we still need strength, we still need stability, we still need movement. That is how real adaptation happens. Let's start with something very practical. You do not need to begin with high repetitions. In fact, trying to do too much too soon is one of the most common mistakes older adults make when starting strength based movements. If your body has been inactive, or if you already deal with stiffness in your knees, hips, or lower back, then even 5 controlled repetitions can be enough to begin. The goal is not exhaustion, the goal is activation. You should feel your muscles working, especially in your thighs and hips, but you should never feel sharp pain in your joints. There is a clear difference between healthy muscle effort and harmful joint strain. One builds you up, the other sets you back. A very effective starting routine looks simple. You perform 5 to 10 chair squats once a day. That's it. No equipment, no complicated structure, no pressure. Just controlled movement, focused breathing, and attention to how your body feels. Over time, as your strength improves, you naturally begin to increase the number of repetitions without forcing it. Now let's talk about breathing, because this is something many people overlook, yet it makes a major difference in both safety and effectiveness. As you stand up from the chair, you gently exhale. As you lower yourself back down, you inhale slowly through your nose. This pattern helps stabilize your core, supports your spine, and prevents unnecessary pressure buildup in your chest or head. When breathing and movement are synchronized like this, the exercise becomes smoother, safer, and more efficient. It also reduces fatigue, allowing you to do more repetitions without feeling overly tired. Another important detail is posture. Your chest should stay lifted, your shoulders relaxed, and your weight evenly distributed through your feet. Many people unknowingly shift too much weight forward onto their toes, which can reduce balance and strain the knees. Instead, imagine pressing through your heels as you rise. This small adjustment immediately improves stability and engages the correct muscles more effectively. Now, let's address something very real for many viewers. What if your knees hurt, or your lower back feels stiff, or you haven't exercised in years? The answer is not to avoid the movement, but to modify it. You do not need to go all the way down into a deep squat. You only move within a range that feels safe and controlled. Even a partial stand and sit can activate the same muscle groups in a gentler way. As your strength gradually improves, your range of motion often improves naturally as well. And this is where something very powerful happens. As your body begins to strengthen, everyday movements start to feel easier without you even realizing why. Standing up from the sofa feels less effortful. Walking across a room feels smoother. Even climbing a few stairs becomes less tiring. These changes may seem small at first, but they add up to something life changing over time. There is also a deeper layer to this that many people do not expect. When you begin to rebuild lower body strength, your confidence starts to change. You no longer hesitate before standing up. You stop worrying as much about losing balance. You start trusting your body again. That psychological shift is just as important as the physical improvement. Now let's talk about progression, because after 1 or 2 weeks of consistent practice, your body will begin to adapt. At that point, you can slowly make the movement more challenging without adding any equipment at all. One simple method is slowing down the descent. Instead of sitting down quickly, you take about 3 full seconds to lower yourself into the chair. 1, 2, 3. This controlled lowering phase increases muscle engagement significantly and improves joint control at the same time. Another progression is adding a brief pause just before sitting down. You lower yourself slowly, stop just above the chair for 1 second, and then complete the movement. That small pause forces your muscles to stabilize your entire body, which builds deeper strength and better balance control. These are small adjustments, but they create meaningful long term changes because they increase the quality of the movement rather than just the quantity. Now, it is important to understand how this exercise fits alongside walking because walking still has an important role in your overall health. Walking supports your heart, your circulation, your mood, and your mental clarity. It keeps you active and engaged with the world around you. But walking alone does not provide enough resistance to maintain or rebuild muscle strength. That is where chair squats fill the gap. Think of walking as maintenance for your cardiovascular system and chair squats as rebuilding for your muscles and stability system. When you combine both, you create a much more complete approach to healthy aging. Even if you already walk daily, adding just a few minutes of chair squats before or after your walk can significantly improve how your body feels within a few weeks. More stability, less fatigue, better posture, and greater confidence in your movement are all common results. There is also something very important to keep in mind. Progress in older age does not always look dramatic, it is often subtle. You may notice that you are less hesitant when standing up. You may realize you are not using your hands as much for support. You may feel slightly steadier when turning or changing direction. These are all signs that your nervous system and muscles are adapting together. And every one of those small improvements matters because they all contribute to one major outcome: independence. Before we continue further, it is worth emphasizing safety again. If you have severe joint issues, recent surgery, or a diagnosed medical condition, it is always wise to consult a healthcare professional before starting any new exercise routine. Your comfort and safety should always come first, and there is no need to push through sharp or unusual pain at any point. At this point, you already understand the movement, you understand the correct form, and you also understand how to gradually progress it. But now we need to bring everything together into something practical, something you can actually follow every day without overthinking it, because the real transformation does not come from knowing the exercise. It comes from building a simple routine that your body can rely on consistently. So let's turn this into a complete, structured 5-minute daily routine that is designed specifically for people over 60 who want to improve strength, balance, and independence without stress, equipment, or complicated training plans. You begin in the most natural way possible by simply sitting in a sturdy chair. Before you even move, take a moment to position your feet flat on the ground, about shoulder width apart, and make sure your posture is upright. This small setup is important because it immediately places your body in a stable position and prepares your muscles for controlled movement. Now you start your first set. You stand up slowly from the chair, focusing on pressing through your heels rather than pushing forward with your toes. Once you reach a standing position, you pause briefly, just long enough to feel balanced and stable, and then you slowly lower yourself back down with control until you gently touch the chair again. That is one repetition, and you repeat this in a steady, unhurried rhythm. For most beginners, especially those who have not done strength based movement in a long time, the first set should be around 5 repetitions. The focus is not speed, and it is not volume. The focus is control, balance, and awareness of how your muscles are working. After completing the first set, you take a short rest. You do not need to sit for long, just enough time to allow your breathing to return to normal. During this pause, it is important to notice how your body feels. A slight warmth in your thighs, a mild sense of effort, and a bit of increased breathing are all normal and healthy responses. What you should not feel is sharp pain or discomfort in the joints. Once you are ready, you move into the second set. This time, you repeat the same movement, but with slightly more attention to control. You may notice that your body already feels more engaged than it did in the first set. That is a sign that your muscles are activating properly. Again, you perform around 5 repetitions, maintaining the same steady rhythm and controlled breathing. As you finish the second set, something important begins to happen. Your nervous system is now fully engaged. Your coordination improves, your balance becomes more responsive, and your muscles start working together more efficiently. This is exactly the kind of stimulation that walking alone does not fully provide. Now, if you are feeling comfortable, you can move into a third short set, which is optional depending on your energy level. Some people will do it, some will not, and both are completely fine. The key principle here is listening to your body rather than forcing a fixed number. In total, this entire routine usually takes around 5 minutes. It is short enough to feel manageable, even on low energy days, but effective enough to stimulate real strength and balance improvements over time. Now, let's address a very important point that many people unknowingly get wrong, and this mistake can slow progress significantly without them realizing it. The mistake is rushing the movement. When people rush chair squats, they rely more on momentum than muscle strength. This reduces the effectiveness of the exercise and increases the risk of losing balance or straining the knees. The goal is not to get through the repetitions. The goal is to fully control each phase of the movement so your muscles are doing the actual work. A slow, controlled stand and sit is far more effective than 10 fast, careless repetitions. Quality always wins over quantity, especially when it comes to aging bodies that need stability more than intensity. Another common mistake is using the arms too aggressively. While it is perfectly fine to lightly use arm rests for support when starting out, relying too heavily on the arms prevents the legs and hips from developing real strength. Over time, the goal is to gradually reduce arm assistance so your lower body takes on more responsibility. Now, let's talk about how this routine fits into real daily life, because consistency becomes much easier when the exercise is connected to habits you already have. One of the simplest strategies is to link this routine to a fixed daily moment. For example, doing it right after waking up, or just before breakfast, or even after brushing your teeth. When you attach the movement to something you already do every day, it stops feeling like a separate task and becomes part of your natural routine. Some people prefer doing it in the evening while watching television or during a short break in their day. There is no perfect time. The best time is the time you can actually maintain consistently. Now, let's be realistic about results. This is not a dramatic overnight transformation. Instead, it is a gradual rebuilding process. In the first week, you may simply feel more aware of your legs. In the second week, you may notice less hesitation when standing up. By the third or fourth week, many people begin to feel noticeably more stable when walking and turning. These improvements are not accidental. They come from the way this exercise retrains your muscles, joints, and nervous system to work together more efficiently again. And here is something very important to understand emotionally as well as physically. Every repetition you perform is not just building strength, it is reinforcing independence. It is training your body to rely less on external support and more on its own capability. That is a powerful shift, especially as we age. Now, as we prepare to move into the final part, we need to zoom out and look at the bigger picture. Because this exercise alone is powerful, but when combined with simple habits like walking, light movement throughout the day, and mindful posture, it becomes part of a complete system for healthy aging. Now that you have the routine in place and understand how to perform chair squats safely and consistently, the next step is to see how this fits into a complete lifestyle approach, because real progress after 60 does not come from a single exercise alone. It comes from how different types of movement work together throughout your day and how you avoid the subtle habits that slowly reduce strength without you even realizing it. Let's start by combining chair squats with walking in the right way, because many people make a mistake here without knowing it. They treat walking as their only form of exercise and assume that as long as they stay active, their strength will naturally hold steady. But as we already discussed, Walking mainly supports cardiovascular health and general mobility. It does not provide enough resistance to maintain or rebuild muscle mass on its own. This is where chair squats complete the picture. Think of walking as keeping your body active and your heart healthy, while chair squats directly maintain and rebuild the strength needed for everyday independence. When you combine both, you are no longer just moving. You are training your entire system to stay functional, stable, and resilient. A simple and effective way to combine them is to use walking as your daily movement foundation and chair squats as your strength anchor. For example, you might go for a gentle walk in the morning or later in the day, and then perform your short chair squat routine either before or after that walk. It does not need to be complicated or perfectly timed. What matters is consistency, not structure. Now let's talk about something that quietly holds many people back: inactivity outside of exercise sessions. It is very common for older adults to do a bit of walking or light exercise and then spend long periods sitting without movement. The problem is not sitting itself, but long, uninterrupted sitting combined with very little strength stimulation throughout the day. When the body stays still for too long, muscles become less responsive, joints stiffen, and balance reflexes slow down. Over time, this contributes to the very weakness and instability people are trying to avoid. That is why short, regular bursts of movement like chair squats are so powerful. They interrupt that cycle of stillness and remind the body that it still needs strength and coordination. Another important habit to be aware of is over-reliance on comfort. As we age, it is natural to avoid movements that feel slightly challenging, but the body only adapts when it is gently challenged. If everything is always easy, nothing improves. The goal is not discomfort or strain, but just enough challenge to signal adaptation. Chair squats provide exactly that balance when done correctly. Now let's look at what real progress actually looks like over time, because it is often more subtle than people expect. You may not notice dramatic changes in a single day or even a single week. Instead, you begin to see small shifts that gradually build into major improvements. You might find that getting out of a chair requires less effort. You may notice that your steps feel more stable when walking. You might realize that you are using your hands less when standing up. You may even feel more confident moving around your home without constantly thinking about balance. These are all signs that your strength and coordination are improving in a functional way. One of the most important benefits of chair squats is that they directly train what is known as functional strength. This is the type of strength that applies to real life movements, not just exercise performance. It is what allows you to stand, sit, climb stairs, carry objects, and recover balance quickly if you stumble. Walking alone does not fully develop this type of strength, which is why combining both movements is so important. Now let's address motivation, because this is where many routines fall apart. At the beginning, people often feel motivated simply because something is new. But over time, that initial motivation fades. What replaces it must be habit, not emotion. This is why keeping the routine simple is so important. A 5-minute movement that you can repeat daily is far more powerful than a complex program you struggle to maintain. There will be days when you feel less energetic. On those days, doing even a reduced number of repetitions still matters. It is not about perfection, it is about continuity. Your body responds to consistency far more than intensity. Even a small session keeps the nervous system engaged and prevents regression. Now, let's also be clear about safety one more time, because this is essential. If you ever feel sharp pain, dizziness, or unusual discomfort during movement, it is important to stop and reassess. Mild muscle fatigue is expected and normal, but joint pain or sharp sensations are not. Adjusting range of motion or taking a break is always better than pushing through discomfort. As you continue this routine over weeks and months, something deeper begins to happen beyond physical improvement. You start to rebuild trust in your own body. Many people over 60 slowly lose confidence in their physical ability, not because they are incapable, but because they have stopped practicing movements that reinforce strength and stability. Chair squats help restore that confidence in a very direct and practical way, and that confidence carries over into daily life. It changes how you move through your home, how you approach stairs, how you walk outside, and how you respond to physical challenges. This psychological shift is just as valuable as the physical one, because independence is both physical and mental. Now, as we move toward the conclusion of this topic, it is important to understand the bigger message behind everything discussed so far. This is not just about one exercise. It is about recognizing that aging does not automatically mean decline. It means adaptation. and the body continues to adapt as long as it receives the right signals. Chair squats are one of the simplest and most effective ways to send those signals. They remind your muscles, joints, and nervous system that they are still needed, still capable, and still able to improve. We've now reached the point where everything comes together because understanding the exercise is one thing, but turning it into a long term habit that actually reshapes how your body functions is what truly matters. At this stage, it's important to step back and look at the bigger pattern. What you're doing with chair squats is not just adding a new activity to your day. You're retraining a core physical system that most people slowly lose over time after 60. The ability to generate strength quickly from a seated position, maintain balance during movement, and recover stability without hesitation. These abilities are directly tied to independence, not in theory, but in real life. Standing up from a chair without support, walking across a room without instability, or catching yourself if you stumble. These are not small details. They are the foundation of daily confidence and safety. And this is exactly why consistency matters more than intensity. If you only take one idea from everything discussed so far, it should be this: your body responds more to repetition than effort. A few controlled chair squats every day send a stronger long term signal to your muscles and nervous system than an intense workout done once in a while and then abandoned. The nervous system learns through repetition. Muscles rebuild through repetition. Balance improves through repetition. Now, let's connect this to real life outcomes over time. In the beginning, the changes are subtle. You might not even notice them at first. But your body is already adapting beneath the surface. The muscles in your thighs, hips, and lower back begin to activate more efficiently. Your joints learn smoother movement patterns. Your brain improves coordination signals between muscle groups. After a few weeks, these internal changes start to show externally. Standing up feels less effortful. Sitting down feels more controlled. Walking feels more stable, even if you haven't changed your walking routine at all. These improvements are not random. They are the direct result of restoring strength in the exact movement pattern your daily life depends on. And as this continues, something very important happens. Hesitation begins to fade. Many older adults don't just struggle with physical weakness, they struggle with uncertainty in movement, that split second doubt before standing up, or that cautious feeling when changing direction slowly reduces as your body becomes more responsive again. That change alone can significantly improve quality of life because it reduces fear based movement restrictions. When you trust your body more, you move more. When you move more, you maintain more strength. And that creates a positive cycle instead of a declining one. Now, let's talk about sustainability because this is where most routines succeed or fail. The reason chair squats work so well long term is because they are simple enough to survive real life. There is no setup, no equipment, no special environment. You don't need motivation in the traditional sense. You just need a chair. That simplicity is what makes consistency realistic, even on low energy days. And on those low energy days, the rule is not to quit. The rule is to reduce. Even a small set of 3 or 4 controlled repetitions keeps the system active. That is enough to maintain the habit and keep your nervous system engaged. Consistency is never about perfection. It is about not breaking the chain completely. Now, let's also bring walking back into the final picture because walking still matters, but in a more balanced role. Walking supports circulation, heart health, mood, and mental clarity. It keeps your body gently active throughout life. But chair squats add what walking cannot fully provide: resistance, strength rebuilding, and functional power. Together, they create a complete system. One maintains motion, the other strength. One supports endurance, the other supports independence. When combined consistently, even for just a few minutes a day, they create a noticeable shift in how your body performs basic daily tasks. Not suddenly, but steadily. And that steady improvement is what leads to lasting change. It is also important to recognize something deeper here. This is not just about exercise, it is about identity. Many people slowly start to see themselves as less capable as they age, often without realizing it. They stop expecting improvement from their bodies. They accept decline as unavoidable. But the reality is more flexible than that. The body does not stop responding to strength training at 60, 70, or even 80. It responds more slowly, yes, but it still responds. That means improvement is always possible when the right stimulus is applied consistently. Chair squats are exactly that kind of stimulus. They are simple, safe, and effective enough to remind your body that strength is still required and still possible. And perhaps the most important takeaway of all is this: Independence is not something you lose all at once. It fades